Saturday at Silverstone means high speed. Welcome to one of the sessions of the season as 20 incredibly talented drivers take on the iconic corners of this rapid racetrack. It is going to be a spectacle at Silverstone. One of the world's great racetracks is poised and ready for qualifying. It is Formula One back at its original venue. We are setting the grid for the British Grand Prix. Here's the circuit. It runs to 18 corners, all with names, all with motor racing memories, 3.6 miles, and these are the tyres available for those in the field. For the race, the C4, the C3 and the C2. For qualifying, we're going for the soft. There is so much support for the British drivers. This race will welcome more people than the Glastonbury Festival. It is a behemoth of an event. It is round 12, qualifying at the British Grand Prix. Compared to yesterday, when all the simulations were done, it is far cooler today. Track temperature is 25 degrees, air temperature is 19. Mercedes were hoping that brought them back into play. But going into this session, it appears to be Ferrari versus McLaren, with the world champion Max Verstappen in the mix as well. Over 100,000 fans have made their way in to this circuit. They are lining the 3.6 miles, and it is a rapid racetrack with some fantastic corners of commitment. You're looking at Stowe, which has been taken over by Lando Norris's fans. That is the Lando stand that we find at the 15th corner of the 18. Great expectation, and the crowd's conversational burble is about to be invaded by the roar of turbocharged engines. Charles Leclerc was fastest in final practice, ahead of Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton not at the front, but the timing of a red flag meant that he was unable to show his true pace in the final hour of practice. The pit lane is silent at the moment. It will not remain so for too much longer. Alongside me in the commentary box, we have Julian Palmer, but first of all, we're going to check in with two-time British Grand Prix winner David Coulthard. DC, one of the best sessions of the season coming up.
It is absolutely fantastic. It was one of the sessions that I used to sort of fear back in my day, because Silverstone, these cars have so much downforce now. Corners like Copse are taken absolutely flat. They were never flat in the cars that I drove, but it was tantalizingly close. So this is just, this is going to be a spectacular session. And this man here, who we see on the screen, is back on form. Can he challenge for the front row? Well, there's a few people are laying claim to that. The two McLarens, of course, his own teammate Charles Leclerc, and you can never write this man off, Max Verstappen, although it does feel as if he's just hanging on by the fingertips to getting a good lap time.
Yeah, it's going to be a lap of commitment that takes the pole position for the 12th round of the year. Oliver Behrman, a moment late in practice, meant that he will receive a 10-place grid penalty and 4 penalty points. That's the most they can dish out. And the reason it's so severe is that it happened under red flags. You're meant to be in the state, according to the rule book, of being prepared to stop. The session is neutralised at that point, so any contact with the barrier is frowned upon, and he's been hit by a 10-place grid drop for the second time this year under a red flag. Julian Palmer, tell us what the drivers are feeling at this stage of proceedings, especially the British drivers at their home event.
A little bit of nerves and a lot of excitement. It's just an enjoyable experience to drive around this circuit, full tilt with low fuel, engine in full song as well. And I mean, the fast corners are an absolute buzz. It's going to be tiny margins that will decide it, and that's where the nerves come in, because you've got to be pinpoint perfect for 18 corners. But I love this one. Home crowd gave me a bit of energy. It's a circuit that, as a Brit, I raced on coming up through the ranks. A lot of drivers do in Formula 3 and Formula 2, but even first foray into cars I was around here, so you get a feel for the place. You know what the curbs are like very, very well. And I used to enjoy coming to this circuit and giving it everything.
You know, you were out on track earlier. I could hear the excitement in your voice just watching the cars at speed.
Yeah, you've both been trackside this weekend, so you've had the appreciation for either side of the Armco. as well as behind the wheel. DC, a two-time British Grand Prix winner. Jolyon raced here across the weekend a couple of times in Formula One as well, was a second-tier champion. Plenty of experience in the commentary box. Brilliant to be with you, and brilliant to have a green light at the end of the pit lane. There are going to be many feeling the conditions at this point, trying to understand what they've got underneath them. Good practice form yesterday for the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. We saw that in Austria, though, and he was unable to carry forward that momentum into qualifying.
Yeah, what I like about the fact that it's overcast, windy, and there was a few drips of rain when we were down in the pit lane and the build-up to this, is they have to get out and get on with it. You know, they can't sort of sit there and see how the session's unfolding. This is, of course, only determining the first few cars not making it through to Q2, but you can't risk suddenly some local weather patterns.
That's what happened last year, wasn't it? There was a little bit of a sprinkling of rain early on in qualifying, and suddenly everyone was trying to get out there and put a lap on the board.
Top drizzle.
Well, that will get anyone left in the pits a bit twitchy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did have that reported in FP3. It has not rained across the day so far. Glorious day yesterday. Track temperature was up at 40 degrees. And it's 25 degrees as Gabriel Bortoleto pushes around the 18 corners of Silverstone. He is the first Brazilian point scorer in Formula One since Felipe Massa. And you can see drops of rain on the lens there as we make our way around Luffield Corner. Bortoleto getting his first point score in Formula One 1 week ago at the Austrian Grand Prix. But in FP3, a dramatic crash at the end. He went off the road at Beckett's and he ripped off the front left as he did so.
Yeah, the mechanics did a great job getting that rebuilt and back out on track. And well, you know, you get that. We saw on the camera from the helicam there, the little spots of rain. You get that exactly on your visor, don't you? And you sort of get experience of judging just how damp and wet it is. But he'll be happy he's out there early.
Yeah, getting that experience gives him an option of going again should this time not be what he requires. Sauber updated the car for the Spanish Grand Prix. Ever since then, it's looked like challenging for the top 10. The midfield battle is absolutely ferocious this year. Currently,
Top drizzle.
and go again into the second part of qualifying as there's a big moment. Club corner for Nico Hülkenberg in the points last time out with a good finish in Austria with 9th place behind his teammate, but not with a good opening lap there, and it means that he's behind his teammate as Stroll goes to the top of the timing page. He's half a tenth ahead of Bortoleto. Main contenders heading out onto the circuit. You are looking at the championship leader, the man from Melbourne, Oscar Piastri, in the slightly altered livery of the McLaren for this weekend, recalling their glory years with Lewis Hamilton. And he won this Grand Prix in wet conditions by over a minute. An extraordinary performance for Hamilton. And the evidence so far this weekend is back in the battle for pole position. He's only taken one pole position in this regulation set that began in 2022. Alex Albon hasn't seen the checkered flag in the last 3 Grand Prix. Mechanical issues for the Williams man. They devoted all of their Friday running to try and get on top of a reliability issue. Very unusual to have a reliability problem go again and again and again in this era of Formula One. It's something that is affecting Alex Albon. It took him out of what James Vowles believed would have been the probable 6th position in the last Grand Prix.
Well, as we see Verstappen there, they've been chasing the balance, the sort of normal Friday of difficulty to then be bringing the performance this morning. Tiny rear wing on that car, giving him some very good top speeds, but of course that doesn't give him the load in the lower speed corners. This corner here particularly, turn 6, has been causing him some problems, and that's where his main time loss is.
I will tell you as a guide for this qualifying hour, Sector 1 can sometimes be misleading. It is the part of the racetrack with the slowest corners on the circuit. This one's rapid though. Bit of drizzle in the air, no worries for Max Verstappen. Full commitment on his first push lap.
It's so quick through Copse, and before you know it, you're heading up to Maggins and Beckett. Still flat out. Now it's a small feather and a downshift. And then you'll pick another one through the final part of Beckett's, come through Chapel Curve and head straight onto another long straight with DRS. Verstappen putting the sectors together at the moment with a couple of corners to go. Stowe is so quick as well. I think it's an underrated corner, this one. You're braking and turning from the outside curb as you're heading to it. The braking point is so late. You just pick a couple of downshifts, and then you get to this final sequence. You can see Max fighting the rear of the car slightly, trying to keep everything alive to the end. And he comes through and does a tidy lap, but we're still sort of half a second away from what we saw in practice earlier on.
Kimi Antonelli, who's got good memories from Formula 2 here last year around this racetrack where he took his maiden win in that championship, goes into what is now 4th position because Lando Norris slots in a 10th behind Max Verstappen. Verstappen, a 2-time winner around Silverstone circuit.
Well, I'm going to assume that that was sort of a banker lap for Norris, not taking too much of a risk, because pretty much in the previous sessions he's been able to nail a time straight away, and Leclerc as well. So that lap from Verstappen, actually, although slower than what we saw in free practice, doesn't look too bad in comparison.
Oscar Piastri hits the front. He's 0.03 of a second ahead of Verstappen, the man he's trying to replace as the Formula 1 world champion. Lewis Hamilton has only been the lead Ferrari in Grand Prix on 2 occasions so far this year. He's gone into what is now 5th because Fernando Alonso in an Aston Martin is only a 10th of a second away. George Russell is 0.2 of a second away into 5th position. Mercedes must have been hoping that the cooler temperatures were going to favour their car. If the temperature is higher, they do not have the same performance. We've seen that time and again. Here's a driver who, on the timing page, was excellent in FP3, but a mistake late on means that Ollie Behrman will take a 10-place grid drop for his first ever British Grand Prix. This is his first full season in the championship, and he finds himself through the final 18th and final corner of the racetrack. Through club he goes, and he is ahead of Charles Leclerc's first effort.
Jolene, how much do you think that actually saves them when they do that short line to the timing line? To me, instinctively, you'd want to not scrub as you go through that final corner, and some don't, but it can only be a matter of millimetres, it can't be centimetres.
Might it be 1,000th at the end? I mean, it is such tiny margins, but these are youngsters that have kind of grown up with the sim world and PlayStationing and opening up and trying different things with their lines. George Russell did it for pole last year, and it's the kind of the first time I've really seen drivers not wanting to just nicely flow out of this final corner and actually put more load on. So that's a very conventional line from Tsunoda, but some of them are just hugging the right-hand side a bit more, taking millimetres out of the distance. You're maybe trying to shave off 1,000th, but then you're doing more scrub, which is hurting your speed anyway, so it's a trade-off.
Yeah, I was always led to believe the path of least resistance, therefore open the steering, use as much of the track as possible, but let's see if that comes down to make the difference later in qualifying.
Yeah, something normally when you get to being grip limited, then you start scrubbing and it's not as helpful.
Just stay calm, just tell me what you're thinking.
So we will box end of this lap, and we'll go for two laps of fuel.
On which set of tyres?
This set of tyres.
So pretty direct from George Russell, telling his engineer to stay calm. Russell is in 5th position at the moment. Colapinto in the blue and pink Alpine. The Argentine driver makes his way into Stowe Corner, fighting it all the way through as he does so, trying to escape the first part of qualifying for the 3rd time since he was a mid-season substitute for Jack Doohan, who started it, and round goes Colapinto into the gravel and out of qualifying.
Yeah, no, the telltale signs were there as he went through Stowe. I was going to make the comment, it looked like the DRS was still not physically open, but the way the rear was snaking. And he's managed to get the gear and drive it out of the barrier. Is there damage?
I think there will be damage to that rear wing by the looks of things. I thought that was session over for Franco Colapinto, but he drags the gravel back on. The mechanics watching on, but it was loose through the high-speed corner, and you can see the state of the car as he gets it back up. Driver fighting for his Formula 1 future. There have been rumours linking the hugely experienced Valtteri Bottas with that team before.
Just stay calm, just tell me what you're thinking.
So we will box end of this lap, and we'll go for two laps of fuel.
On which set of tyres?
This set of tyres.
Nothing is ever simple. So the teams have got to decide between whether or not, if you're a fast car, if you're Piastri, if you're Verstappen, if you're Alonso, if you're Norris, do you go out and do you run another new set? Now, they're going to want to try and get through, especially the big cars, on the fewest number of sets possible. Lando, for example, has quite a lot of improvement he could make in turn 13, even if he's taking that used tyre back out. For the cars towards the back of that order that are on the risk, on the bubble of getting knocked out, it's going to be a case of fitting as many new tyres as they can as possible. But with 6 minutes and 49 seconds on the clock, even though the tyres themselves are one-time lap tyres, they're able to...
Yeah, sorry, I lost a rears. Lost a lap. Or I touched a bump, something, it just went the rear.
With a resumption time. The track is cleared. We thank the marshals, and they have recovered the Alpine from the side of the racetrack. It originally hit the wall at Club Corner. He made his way to the farm curve, and they have recovered that. We will get going again 21 minutes past the hour, so 3 minutes time. We are ready, and this event which grows and grows and grows. 160,000 coming through the gates tomorrow, over 100,000 today, and we have approaching 500,000 fans attending the British Grand Prix over the weekend.
You know what? You can feel the atmosphere from behind the visor on this place. I remember getting through Q1 in, I think it was 2017, and there was an enormous roar. I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, the crowd are really behind me. And I looked up to the big screen. I saw Fernando Alonso just gone top in the maligned McLaren Honda. But you can feel it as you're out there. It's one of those special venues. Such a big crowd, especially around that final corner there. Club just lining the circuit. They've had a lot to roar about as well over the years.
You have indeed. Britain has had a lot of success. So many teams based there. We've spoken about this before. I often feel that we just don't blow our own trumpet enough to say how brilliant Britain is as a base for these multinational racing teams in terms of their employees. But in terms of drivers, you probably know off the top of your head how many British world champions there's been out of the last 75 years.
No, that is one where I could take you to thank you for that, DC. A smile on his face as the two-time winner of the British Grand Prix gave me that question. And I do not have that immediately to hand, but I can see out of the commentary box window that we've got a Mexican wave going because they're enjoying it.
Let's do the names then. So we've got Clark, we've got Hill, we've got Stewart, we've got Mansell, we've got Hamilton, we've got Button.
You've missed out Hawthorne. He was the first.
I was just coming to him.
Surtees, have we done Surtees?
Yeah.
Surtees, well done.
2 wheels and 4.
Yeah.
Amazing achievement.
So how many have we got to there?
Oh, I wasn't counting.
Have we done Jackie Stewart?
I think I said Stewart.
I
yes.
think you said
three-time world champion.
You're in
Jim
trouble
Clark.
if you hadn't. Yeah.
Was Jim Clark 2 or 3 times world champion?
2 times.
2-time world champion.
James Hunt?
1 time.
There's been 10.
Very good,
Well
Jolien.
done.
That's the answer. I don't know how many we've just listed off, at least
I think
not
we
more than
listed
10,
everyone.
hopefully.
I hope we haven't forgotten anyone, otherwise everyone is currently shouting at their TV. I like the impromptu quiz during the red flag. Excellent stuff from DC, who is standing next to Jolien Palmer. I'm Alex Jakes. We have Oscar Piastri with a 1:26.0, but we're expecting everyone to have to improve. Real moment of jeopardy then, when if you aren't able to take your fastest time through at this stage, and you can see more Spots of rain on the camera lens there. You could get a big shot at this stage. The 5 slowest drivers must fall. We know that Colapinto is one of them, so who will be featured within the other 4? The moment has arrived. The McLarens are bolting to the fast lane along with the rest of the field as those drops of rain are shown up on that camera lens as well. Maybe it's intensifying out there.
There's no umbrellas up, but there are certainly some spots of rain in the pit lane.
Yeah, there are this crowd. They don't worry about brawlies, do they? But yeah, every camera angle we've seen, other than this one, has shown that there's certainly been a few drops during that break.
Some drops in the pit lane. Seems like it might be worse than before. Copy.
So they're mentioning that as they go along. As we look at the Williams, we didn't mention Graham or Damon Hill, who's one commentary box along, so DC can go and apologise to his old teammate.
I was with him last night as well. I can't believe I forgot Damon. Sorry, Damon.
Anyway, that's what you were shouting at your TV screens. I'm cycling through. I hope we did.
Some drops in the pit lane. Seems like it might be worse than before. Copy.
In Damon Hill. 5.5 minutes to go. It is qualifying to set the grid for the British Grand Prix. We're on board with the championship leader. What a season Oscar Piastri has had so far. 5 times a race winner, and he still has a handy advantage over his teammate in the World Championship. 15 points, the leader, coming in to the halfway stage marker of the 24 round season. He is 15 points in the lead of the World Championship.
Little wiggle of the rear as he opens this lap. He's got Russell and Antonelli and the Mercs have just left the pit lane, so he will they'll be well aware that he's on a hot lap, but it's just a question of where does he get past them, and does it give him a tow, or does it steal some of the downforce across the wing?
Yeah, plenty of others have waited in the pits for just one flying lap right at the end of the session, so it's not going to be too busy.
Backed out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, immediately. So Piastri.
Track is definitely not the same. Possibly. Understood.
Yeah, when you see the cameras in the pit lane with spots on the lens, that's a telltale sign because they're constantly wiping the lens of those cameras down there if there is rain in the air. So the drivers are now having to deal with a slippery surface.
Albon has just done a personal best in the first sector, so there's still grip to be found, but do you want to...
Track is definitely not the same. Possibly. Understood.
Blend out of the throttle from Albon into Copse Corner, so missing that little bit of confidence, understandably, into this part of the circuit.
Yeah, this is just spectacular through here. We've both been out on track watching through that section. Spikes of 5G in the middle of the corner, showing how much downforce these cars have. And as you highlighted earlier, Julian, this is actually one of the great corners on the racetrack. You lean on that front axle, try and not use too much of the curb and go beyond track limits before coming down to what is a 60-mile-an-hour corner. We'd call that a slow-speed corner, but 60 miles an hour is still pretty quick.
Yeah, you can stand next to your dual carriageway and feel the speed at that point. Third fastest for Alex Albon. Great lap when it is slippery out there. He took the grip. Now, Bortoletto's in the drop zone, so is Esteban Ocon, so is Hulkenberg. Gasly is remaining in the pits at the moment.
So Albon has done the 26.0 that his boss thought he needed to do to try and get through into Q2. So that's a decent lap from him, but it shows how much others might have to improve. The Sauber's finding a little bit. Bortoletto getting to 11th. Shuffle Sonoda down to 17th. But here is Yuki now trying to improve.
Yeah, we just saw that Norris improved his time, but still keeps him in 5th place. Yuki was actually pretty good in the morning practice relative to Max Verstappen, and we can see his times unfold now, so this is a better lap for him.
Oliver Behrman as well, still competing in this session. Fastest middle sector of anyone so far. Yuki Tsunoda was 5th earlier on. Oliver Behrman was in 6th position. Behrman will get a 10-place grid drop from wherever he qualifies the car. We're getting close to the 2-minute warning. Tsunoda, knocked out in Q1 last week, moves up to 6th position, 0.3 of a second away from his teammates' benchmark pace.
So Antonelli's now 15th. Leclerc is now 11th. there are some big names dropping closer to the drop zone, even closer now as Ocon jumps up.
So Antonelli now into 16th position thanks to Esteban Ocon's time. A response required for the Italian teenager who is round club corner over the line, and he moves up to 8th position. Ollie Behrman, P3 at the moment.
So the super fast Ferraris of this weekend are now 11th and 13th. Neither of them are out there on new tyres, but they still have pace in the car to try and improve, or so they hope. Here's Charles Leclerc then, and he needs to find something here. He's only 1/10 safe.
Yeah, and his opening first sector isn't good. It's about 3/10 away from the fastest that's been achieved there. They were okay in that sector earlier, so this lap has not started well for Leclerc.
Everyone behind him, apart from Colapinto, who's obviously out, is going to have a new tyre to have a go at this time from Leclerc as well. So he's got to find an improvement.
Hulkenberg is coming back to the pits with only a minute to go. So Hulkenberg in 17th. Looks like he's finished with this session.
Can I go again or not?
Negative. Need to box.
There's still time. Why would I have power?
Got no fuel.
Oh.
Hamilton hasn't got another fuel lap available to him. Incredible. So he's in 11th position then. Charles Leclerc is going to jump up and be safe with this lap time as he comes over the line and goes to P8.
The Saubers are done. They're in the pits as well. Stroll.
Can I go again or not?
Negative. Need to box.
There's still time. Why would I have power?
Got no fuel.
Oh.
The last Grand Prix, Lawson to the line, Lawson to 14th position, and Carlos Sainz is into the drop zone, is currently the bad news, but he's got the fastest first sector of anyone so far, and he needs it right now.
Yeah, good middle as well, so this should be able, if he pulls the end of the lap together, but it's still quite tricky breaking down into Club Corner. Stowe just keeps it within track limits by the looks of it, or was he just a
He
little
was on
bit...
the brink.
He was on it, yeah, absolutely. It was a sort of John McEnroe sort of chalk dust type scenario there.
Sainz across the line, former pole sitter around this circuit, gets the lap that he needed under pressure and moves up to 8th position. Bortoletto's in the pits, can't respond. He's in the drop zone along with Stroll, Hulkenberg, Colapinto, who had the accident, and so it's over to Gasly, who did find a last gasp lap to demote Liam Lawson, who goes from the elation of Austria to exiting in the first part of qualifying. And there's one Alpine through as well, but it's Liam Lawson, Gabriel Bortoletto, Lance Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg and Franco Colapinto who go out in Q1. Well, Verstappen was fastest, and then it was Piastri, Behrman, Albon, Alonso. The top 5 at the front. That's Q1 in the books. Liam Lawson had a lap time to improve. Let's see what he was able to do through the final corners. Big moment at Stowe.
I have no grip. I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, that was like Colapinto, wasn't it, when he was going through?
Yeah, I have no grip. I have no idea what happened.
19 cars. That is the closest I ever remember a qualifying session.
Yeah, it's obscene, isn't it? And then you've got Lawson there saying, I've got absolutely no grip, I've no idea what happened. He's obviously feeling, you know, drivers are so sensitive that a tiny little bit of grip taken away, and suddenly you're not feeling the confidence and you're making those small corrections and running wide. But he's half a second off the fastest. He's in a Racing Bulls car. The grip level can't be terrible for him, but obviously with tiny margins, you've got to differentiate them somehow, and Lawson just off the bottom end of that.
It's like Lewis having his belts redone there, so was he a bit uncomfortable in the cockpit? I don't think he would have time to have jumped out and back in again, but something obviously bothering him.
14th in the end there. Ferrari saving tyres.
Are we through?
We are through in P15, only just, but we are through. Well done.
Yeah, we drove guys. Are we through?
We are through in P15, only just, but we are through. Well done.
Yeah, we drove guys.
Well done.
What happened from your perspective?
Yeah, just tough quali. I think I struggled a bit with the grip at the beginning. The track was a bit wet, and I just slid onto that curve and I lost the car, unfortunately.
You've been trying to build confidence in the car over these last few weekends. I mean, where do you go from here after that session?
I think as a team we are just working to try and make everything better. Just struggling a little bit with the car. We'll try to get better for tomorrow.
Thanks, Franco.
That was Franco Colapinto. Let's hear from Ruth Buscombe now.
Tracy, yeah, super close session. If it wasn't for Franco's lap, that would have been the tightest Q1 ever since we've had this format. 0.688 seconds separated P1 from P19. We actually saw the track get a little bit slower part of that as like these level 0 drops in my raincoat that I've worn definitely for this exact moment hit the track. Super interesting different strategies at the front as well. So Lewis Hamilton complaining on the radio that he doesn't have another lap of fuel, whereas his teammate took an extra one. Different strategies, strengths and weaknesses. One lap of fuel is worth 600s, where the gaps are so small here, it does matter. New tyres, used tyres, it's all coming into play going into Q2.
Thank you, Ruth. We will journey to Q2 in a few moments' time. It will start at 35 minutes past the hour, and we'll have Verstappen, Piastri, Behrman, Albon, Alonso, Norris, Ocon, Sainz, Hadjar, Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Tsunoda, Hamilton, and the man who just squeaked through, Pierre Gasly for Alpine. He did make it into Q2. We are awaiting the start of Q2. 15 cars fighting it out. We'll lose another 5, and then we will have the top 10 shootout for pole position. Fernando Alonso finishing Q1 0.2 of a second off the pace and finding himself in 5th position. Driver with Aston Martin. Plenty of talk about the driver market, lots of speculation about the futures of Max Verstappen and George Russell. Could bring Fernando Alonso into the mix as well if Russell has to find another seat. He has the longest ever Formula One career as the Spanish driver, 412 starts. So a high pressure moment there for plenty of drivers, especially Carlos Sainz, who delivered under the pressure, because Sainz is currently on the worst ever run he's had in qualifying, eliminated in Q3 on multiple occasions, Sainz, so he was staring at another elimination there. Only time in his Formula One career he's been eliminated in 3 Q1 sessions, but he's made it through into the second part.
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually to see Carlos Sainz at Williams, and I always felt it was going to be a real test for Alex Albon, but he's answered that brilliantly by sort of confirming that not only is he the real deal, he's able to handle the pace of someone that's had pole positions in a Ferrari. He's won Grand Prix.
It's pressure, isn't it, for a driver when you have a race winner come and join you in the team and you think, okay, and now I'm going to find out how good I am and what level I can take myself to. But I feel like Alex has completely risen. He's thriving off Carlos joining the team, and he's looked a little bit quicker all weekend. He's looked cleaner. He's been making fewer mistakes, and I think he's been a real star this season so far, Alex Albon. And that then makes it hard for Carlos. New team, new environment, trying to get used to it. He's won this race a couple of years ago. He's used to fighting at the front, and now trying to get into Q2 regularly. This isn't what he signed up for.
It's actually, I almost feel guilty critiquing the drivers' performance relative to each other in an era that we've never seen the sport so close. That, you know, you're talking a tenth can make such a difference on where you line up on the grid, where that kind of used to be an acceptable distance between teammates. You know, even a couple of times the team wouldn't be too upset with that.
Yeah, it'd be neither here nor there, would it? Looking for the final 10th. That's now become the final 100th, occasionally the final 1,000th that separates the positions. I guess you've got to have a differentiating factor, haven't you? The drivers are all so honed. They have so much data to now look across at their teammate to see what they're doing. They can now look at the other teams a lot more to see what they're doing as well. They have the telemetry, they've got video footage. So they've got their natural skills, and then they're looking across at the other people's natural skills and working out how they can take the good and leave the bad. And it means that we get these really, really tight sessions, as well as the cars all converging. But something's got to make the difference to be quick.
Looking at Lewis Hamilton's recent qualifying form, that's why his Friday practice times yesterday was so encouraging. He said he was dreaming of his best Grand Prix weekend of the season after the performance of that updated and upgraded Ferrari. We have a green light at the end of the pit lane once again, and we've let the first minute disappear, but now is the time for action as the championship leader heads out into the fast lane. And the 15 cars will debate the final 10 spots remaining. And the 5 will fall, will reset the times, and then we'll go battling for pole position. One of the great qualifying sessions of the year. We've got both Williams drivers competing in this part and able to crank on the steering lock and eventually join the racetrack. Lando Norris taking a moment with the grandstand in a luminous yellow to match his crash helmet design. He's just being held. His teammates already out there on the circuit. Lando Norris second in the championship with 201 points. He's the most recent winner. He took the checkered flag in Austria to go with his wins in Monaco and the season opener in Melbourne.
Well, Verstappen first to head out there. Again, I think it's just trying to get these banker laps while they know where the weather is. He runs the risk of, by the time he comes round, he could have some slower cars coming out of the pit lane. But as he is exiting Beckett's out onto the hangar straight, he'll be going through his prep lap. It's a sort of moment of reflection, isn't it, Julian? On your out lap, you're feeling the brakes, you're sort of watching the tire temps, the surface temps. That moment of prepping is all about then going on this journey into the unknown, the fastest laps that you'll do over the weekend.
It just feels like the calm before the storm, doesn't it? You head out, you crawl out of the pits, you're going very slowly at times, but then you need to do a few weaves and make sure the tyres are perfect for this point. And now suddenly the adrenaline spikes, the heart rate goes up, you're going to be flat out turning right hand here through there at almost 200 miles per hour, and now you're on a roller coaster ride for 1 minute and 25 seconds trying to piece together the dots to get around the circuit.
Yeah, it's spectacular. Verstappen just whizzed past Norris, who was on his out lap, got well out of the way, and he goes out onto the Wellington straight, and DRS pops open, balance of the car comes onto the front axle. And this, just when you were talking about the telemetries and the information the drivers have, that's how we know that he's been struggling in turn 6, because of that real-time information that's fed back to all the teams. So you get to see where you have an advantage in which corners and where you have a deficit.
Max Verstappen is a two-time winner around here. He's also been on pole position a couple of times around Silverstone circuit. He won the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, and he won the British Grand Prix in big wiggle through the high-speed stuff at Beckett's there, fighting it. Red Bull opting for this low drag setup. The low downforce rear wing, it's going to give him brilliant straight line speed. Could leave him in a pickle tomorrow if we do get rain. But the team have gone in that direction, knowing that's the only way that they're going to mix it at the front. They're relying on his unbelievable skill behind the wheel, and he's going to set the benchmark time here. Fastest in the first sector and the second. Across the line he goes, and it's a 25.3 for everyone to beat. Carlos Sainz has just gone quickest through the first third of the lap.
Here didn't go in.
He's obviously had a retry on one of those shifts. That's very unusual. These systems now are normally synced on the outlap. We saw Hamilton struggling off the second.
Here didn't go in.
Then Hamilton.
Used tyres for the Ferrari, so they're staying on that first set of tyres. They're really being very frugal with their tyre usage. Verstappen was back out on new boots. The McLarens are as well, so this is like for Oscar Piastri.
And he set an identical lap time to Max Verstappen. It's a 1:25.316 for both Verstappen and Piastri.
How is that possible?
It's not bad.
His outlap's way too slow. I'm having to back up.
I can see that.
Different drivers, different cars, different power units.
Well, you know what? He didn't do that narrow line out of the final corner, did he? That's the last 1,000.
There you go. The secret weapon will be deployed in the final part of qualifying.
We saw it for pole position in Canada last year as Hadjar goes into 6th position, and now we've seen it for Max Verstappen and Piastri in Q2. These times will be reset. Keanu Reeves, enormous Formula One fan, loves a Formula One documentary. He's so into it, telling the story of Braun's fairy tale year. He's going to do one for Cadillac as they make their bow in 2026.
Yeah, he was looking a little bit like he was making all the noise at the party last night as he walked in there. The wind sort of making him look a bit dishevelled, but he is he's a petrol head, isn't he? Loves his bikes, and well, he's going to be doing a Cadillac documentary, which we look forward to seeing when they make their entry.
Lando Norris now has the fastest time, a 1:25.231, to go all of 800ths ahead of the reigning world champion and his teammate, the championship leader, Kimi Antonelli, scrubbing off the speed into the Vale chicane, makes his way through. Club corner is the last thing between him and the timing line. It's only good enough for 11th at the moment for the Italian teenager. One-time podium finisher in Formula One back in the Canadian Grand Prix. That Grand Prix won by George Russell, who's gone into 4th position.
Not an easy weekend so far for Antonelli. He actually hit the ground running quite quickly in the first practice, but hasn't seemed to pick up from there too much. He was on a used tyre for that one, but he had to take an extra set at the end of Q1.
What Antonelli is doing?
Yeah, Antonelli crazy.
I mean, it's good. He will get a penalty. Good position for us.
He's already got one as well.
Yeah, 3 places for hitting Max Verstappen on the opening lap of the Austrian Grand Prix.
What Antonelli is doing?
Yeah, Antonelli crazy.
I mean, it's good. He will get a penalty. Good position for us.
He finds himself in 5th position, like he did in Q1.
Upgrades on the Aston Martin, they're really working, aren't they? Feels like a while ago the Aston Martin was a tail ender in this season, and they've made some progress, getting closer again. They're based at Silverstone, so it's a nice, even more of a home race for them than anyone else.
Yeah, they've got their, what's can only be called spectacular facility just outside the main gate of the Silverstone racetrack, and all part of the master plan of investments that's seen them secure the services most recently of Adrian Newey as well. So it could not be beyond the realms of possibility that they could have the quickest package next year. Honda Power, Adrian Newey designed car, Fernando Alonso, or his teammate, of course, who's gone out, Lance Stroll, excuse me, who's gone out in that first part of qualifying. He could be leading the World Championship at this point next year.
The driver who finished in 18th, Lawson was in 16th, and it was Bortoletto 17th, Stroll in 18th, Hulkenberg and Colapinto were the drivers eliminated. If you are just joining us, these are some of the greatest corners on the planet. Maggots and Beckett's, and there was the wiggle that we saw when we were watching Max Verstappen's lap.
Yeah, I wonder if that's where he missed a downshift as well. And it is very distracting because you're so into a routine of coming through here, come through the left, down 2 gears, pick your apex to the right-hand side. And if you go down and you just don't feel that second gear come, it's already too late to then snatch it as you're then turning in, because you will then unsettle the car. And everything is so metronomic for the drivers by this point in the weekend. You're looking for tiny differences, and something like that can throw even the world champion off slightly.
So the car's back to the pit lane. A final moment to gather yourself again and look for that improvement. Oliver Behrman was talking about 1 lap improvement. He's got a time good enough at the moment to beat his teammate. A teammate battle has been really interesting over 1 lap. 6.5 to Esteban Ocon. Not bad for Behrman, who is up against a Grand Prix winner there, as you look at the altered livery down at Racing Bulls for this weekend.
The Ferraris are inviting pressure, aren't they? 11th and 13th. They've run the same set of used tyres, so that is now 1 set that's done 3 runs, so they're even worse off than they were on the time they were trying to escape Q1. But it does mean with 5 minutes to go, Hamilton's car getting fired up now. This was a really quick car the whole way through the weekend, but it doesn't look it because they keep leaving themselves in the lurch, and they both have to put in really good laps again.
Yeah, I suspect that he's probably got that extra lap of fuel this time, just in case he has an issue on the outlap. He's not happy with the prep, gets a bit of traffic at the wrong moment. This is not the time to not have the ability to do another one.
And that's why they're going with 5 minutes to go. So you've got Oscar Piastri heading out there as well, and most of the rest of the field choosing 5 minutes to go as the time. But there's enough for a bailout for the Ferraris. There's a little bit of margin there.
The tactics of how you run your qualifying session so important, but it's Hamilton, Antonelli, Leclerc, Gasly and Tsunoda currently in the drop zone. Time to be found, and there will be time out there. The green light is on. If you're wondering why they're all parked up, they build the gaps at this part of the circuit. They used to run slowly out on the racetrack. The FIA felt that something needed to be done about it, so it is a slow crawl out of the pit lane. This is where the drivers get their own space, and then they begin the task of warming the brakes and the tyres, getting them into the window that they operate best at. And Lewis Hamilton's brother, Nick, watching on. And he's in attendance to see his brother race in Ferrari red at Silverstone this weekend. Lewis Hamilton speaking of his pride at racing in Ferrari red at this, his home Grand Prix for the first time in his illustrious career.
Looked like some cars were bending the rules a little, leaving garages there.
Australia's favourite bit of the weekend, hearing garage to pit lane chat on the radio.
Yep, it's all fine. Come on. So he's lost a minute, Hamilton, from the moment he left the garage to actually hitting the track. So that buffer that he had is a little bit less.
Looked like some cars were bending the rules a little, leaving garages there.
Got enough to back out of it early on and go again. They got enough time.
Well, Verstappen is going to be the first to open his lap as he's just gone across the start-finish line in front of our commentary box. And yeah, it's a take a breath, tighten the belts type of racetrack, isn't it? It's definitely one that you've got to be committed.
I love it, though. When you get to this part of the weekend and you've had the practice sessions, you've had now Q1, you've had Q2, or you're getting to the end of Q2, you've had the first run, and it's tiny margins. You're just thinking, right, the last lap I did this. How do I tighten up the entry to a certain corner? How does Max think about the line into Beckett's? Was it that just the gear shift? Can he do something differently from his side to avoid that happening again? Was he taking it on the curb potentially? It's tiny things, and then apart from that, you're looking for thousandths here, maybe a couple of hundredths in each corner, and it adds up to being your time improvement.
This is a pressure lap, even when you've got so many records around this circuit. The man who's won 9 British Grand Prix is in the drop zone, along with Antonelli, along with his teammate Charles Leclerc, who's a couple of meters further up the road as he pushes on to Village Corner. That's the corner Hamilton's heading to right now.
There's not many people improving in that first sector. Norris is slower than he's been previously. Verstappen is slower. Sainz is slower. Albon. It's only Behrman so far that's improved that the first sector.
So the other front runners have gone for a used tyre now. The Ferraris have done the reverse, so that's why they're in trouble, but they've now got the new tyre on, and wow, that's why Hamilton has done the fastest first sector of anyone.
Great pace on the fresh Pirelli rubber for Lewis Hamilton on the left-hand side. Charles Leclerc further up the road. Charles Leclerc is heading to Copse Corner. That's the amazing direction change. Look at how quick this is. Incredible commitment with the underside of the car, the sparks flying and the smoke pouring out as the floor of the car strikes the tarmac. Through maggots, through Beckett's we go. Both Ferraris improving when they need to. They're not worried about making the final part of qualifying. They're worried about whether they can find the front row later on, but they've still got to go through the motions here and complete the lap cleanly. Lewis Hamilton coming alive around this racetrack. He has not stood on the podium for Ferrari in a Grand Prix yet. He's had that sprint win. Charles Leclerc goes fastest. Direct comparison on new tyres, like for like. Guess who at the front of the field? Lewis Hamilton by 0.04 of a second. And it's Ferrari 1 and 2. Lando Norris in third. Fourth for Verstappen, fifth for Piastri. Hadjar is in the drop zone at the moment, and there's outlaps for Ocon, Antonelli and Gasly. Antonelli now pushing on. He's making his way to Brooklands Corner.
If that tight line out of the final corner is good enough for Lewis Hamilton, it's good enough for me, DC.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. It just feels that Hamilton's been on it all the sessions here. There's something about that Ferrari car now that's starting to work with the most recent upgrades.
Alex Albon has been knocked into the drop zone by Yuki Tsunoda. Albon's lap time wasn't good enough. It was slower than his first effort. He's in P11.
Ocon is going quickly. The Haas car is quick as well. Behrman's up in 6th, so Tsunoda is not safe. Hadjar just misses out in 11th.
Hadjar is done. Albon has set his fast lap. Ocon is improving. Antonelli is improving. 0.02 of a second between Antonelli and Yuki Tsunoda. Antonelli, who was 14th earlier on in practice, is 14th at the moment. Gasly's time is good enough to get into 9th position. Now Russell is a long way off Hamilton's benchmark, but it's his teammate that we're focusing on. Across the line we go. P8 for Kimi Antonelli. Sainz finds himself in 11th. He's knocked out as well as his teammate as well. And Tsunoda drops down into the drop zone. Sainz, Tsunoda, Hadjar, Albon and Ocon will not make it to the final top 10 shootout. Pierre Gasly making it through. Look at the gap between Gasly and Sainz. Fine margins, 0.04 of a second between competing in Q3 and heading for the exit.
Totally different car. My badge goes. No, we made it difficult for ourselves.
Well, Alex Albon is out, along with Carlos Sainz in the Williams, Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, Isaac Hadjar, Alex Albon, who we heard from, and Esteban Ocon will take no further part. They're out in Q2. And our top 10.
Totally different car. My badge goes. No, we made it difficult for ourselves.
And he's having such a quick weekend in P6 at the end of Q2. This is Max Verstappen with the lock-up in front of him. Oh, that was incredibly close.
Yeah, that was the Haas trying to get out of the way, actually. I think that obviously a bit of a communication issue and then parking it at the apex. Now, Max had plenty of room on the outside, but it certainly just catches your eye and puts you off, as you can see the reverse camera angle.
I mean, he couldn't have done much more in the end to get out of the way there, Esteban Ocon. It certainly is distracting for Verstappen, but Max was through already with his new tyre run before. Ocon, not ideal prep for him either, was he? He was coming out of the pits at that point, just putting a flat spot on his tyres before he's even tried to wind it up for a fast lap. What a job from Gasly. Didn't see that one coming.
No, and he has had no form around here in the last few years. Pointless in his last 5 visits to Silverstone. That is his longest streak at any circuit on the calendar. A winner here in GP2 when he was in the junior tier, but Gasly finally has something to smile about, and that is a 7th Q3 of the season for Gasly, who is racing for the team in 10th in the Constructors.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton there sitting in the garage will be wishing that was Q3. It's been a while since we've seen him topping the times, but power of the people is making a difference.
And it's actually pretty regular this weekend that he's been slightly ahead of Charles Leclerc as well. That the balance of power in Ferrari just for this weekend so far seems to have shifted towards Lewis, and he's regularly getting the most out of it. Ferrari gave their drivers a bit of work there to make sure they put clean laps in, didn't catch a yellow flag or a back marker, and they trusted their drivers. They were right to 1-2 at the end, and they're looking dialed in before Q3.
Yeah, what was a promising Friday is turning into something special for the Ferrari pair, who are in the mix at a circuit where they have won in recent history, with Carlos Sainz, an amazing British Grand Prix in 2022. Let's hear from another driver eliminated in the first part of qualifying. This is Liam Lawson.
Liam, that must be hugely frustrating. So close to the Q2 cut there. Can you talk us through it, please?
I mean, yeah, it's more frustrating because we've had a fast car all weekend, and the temperatures dropped, and I guess, I don't know, we couldn't get on top of tyres. I just had no grip starting the lap, and it didn't really come through the lap either. So it's a shame to throw away not a weekend, but a session, qualifying where we've been faster weekends.
How tricky was it after that red flag? We saw some spots of rain. Was it really having an impact, and a little moment at Stowe as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more just the temperature that for whatever reason we struggled to put the tyre in a good place for the lap, because we haven't really had that issue this weekend. So it's something new that's been in quali, and I think it's just more to do with these temperatures.
And what's your thinking for tomorrow? Is there anything you can get out of it, do you think?
We'll try, but it's going to be a tough race.
Thanks, Liam.
Liam Lawson, understandably, incredibly disappointed to find himself go from his best ever Formula One result of P6 in Austria to eliminated in the first part of qualifying. We have arrived at the Q3 shootout. It will be Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri. Ollie Behrman is taking part despite that 10th-place grid penalty. And then it's Fernando Alonso, Kimi Antonelli, George Russell and Pierre Gasly who makes the top 10 shootout for the 7th time this season. Let's check in with our strategist, Ruth Buscombe.
Yeah, well done, Gasly. I didn't have him getting through. Absolutely stunning performance in the low-speed corners there to get that Alpine into that top 10 shootout. But right at the front in the fight for pole, so interesting. Ferrari did 3 runs on 1 tyre and then bolted on the new set of softs right at the end of that session to put themselves fastest. Now, it looks it's almost about 6/10 between the used and the new, which means it's very difficult to compare going into Q3, where the McLarens that ran on the used, where Max that ran on the used at the end of that session are relative to that Ferrari. Now, going into Q3, it should be 2 runs. 2 new tyres for everybody. 1 time lap is optimal in terms of absolutely maximising the performance. Is anyone going to take an extra lap of fuel worth 600ths round here to be able to have another go at it in case of wind, in case of gusts, in case of yellow flags, or even a red flag? Who knows, Jakesy? I don't, but I'm really looking forward to finding out who's going to be parking it on pole in glorious Silverstone.
Thank you, Ruth. Here we go then. They are up for it in the Lando Norris grandstand. And a luminous corner of Silverstone. That's a new addition down at Stowe. Great atmosphere around the circuit. There's Lando fans, there's Lewis fans, but the great thing about this crowd is they're knowledgeable about the Formula One. There's fans for everyone lining this circuit.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? And I thought it was quite a spectacular statement when you said there's more people here than at Glastonbury, because that looks like it was an entire village of people, maybe a small town actually, but yeah, it makes the village I grew up in, 700 people, seem very, very small.
Yeah, that was always mentioned when you cross the line to win this race, David. David Coulthard from Twynham, Scotland. Always referenced by the great Murray Walker.
We're over 1,000 people now, though.
Exciting times for DC's Village and for us watching. Q3 is ready to begin. 12 minutes to decide the top 10 for the British Grand Prix. Just a reminder, we'll say it for one last time, there's going to be a 3-place penalty for Kimi Antonelli, 10 places for Ollie Behrman.
That was pretty marginal by Mercedes.
Copy.
Piastri, which sounds very much like his happy voice. He's so calm, isn't he? He's so sort of grounded. And, well, I'm surprised as this is the final part of qualifying. This is the moment in the session that will decide who starts on pole. Surprised it hasn't gone up just 1 octave at least, with a bit of excitement.
It was pretty intense when he didn't get a chance to set a run when the yellow flags came out, because Gasly spun at the final corner in Austria, and he was furious on the radio on this date in 2020. Last lap Lando at the Austrian Grand Prix. Will Joseph gave him the instructions, what modes to be in, when to push the overtake button. They threw the kitchen sink at closing down what was a 5-second gap to Lewis Hamilton. They managed to do so. Hamilton had a 5-second penalty, and it was Lando Norris on the rostrum. For the first time in his Formula One career, he has been back there 34 more times, and 7 times as a winner.
Yeah, when you were just saying earlier about the penalties for Antonelli and Behrman, got to say, what a brilliant job Behrman's been doing when you consider his experience in Formula One against his more experienced Grand Prix winning teammate. And yeah, he will be frustrated, of course, with that penalty. What a missed opportunity to be able to start within the top 10 at his first British Grand Prix.
Yeah, it is. Keanu Reeves turned up for Q3, and he's got a place on the pit wall. Fantastic view There are so many great places to watch around this circuit. He's got a great view. So have you, because this is going to be spectacular stuff. Here's the stakes as we go into it. Max Verstappen is 61 points back in the World Championship. He can take risks all the time. The risk this weekend for Red Bull, they've gone low drag. It's a skinny rear wing, and so they're relying on the prowess behind the wheel of the reigning world champion.
Yeah, he is something of a qualifying expert. Well, actually, you could put expert at the end of every statement when it comes to driving a Grand Prix car, but he's having to work hard around this circuit, and as you say, that you can visibly see how small that rear wing is in comparison to some of the competitors, but that will make it challenging in the sort of medium low speed corners, but it will give him a bit of an advantage come Grand Prix Sunday in the straight line speed.
He's unbelievably quick through Copse Corner. He's made his way through Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel, and this is the Hangar Straight. All the versions of Silverstone we've had through the years, the Hangar Straight has always played a part, all the way back to the inaugural race in 1950. Who will head the field for 2025? It's what we're deciding in Q3. Verstappen with a brilliant middle sector that's been beaten by Oscar Piastri, who was rapid here last year. Time to beat on the board from Max Verstappen is a 25.2. He peels out of the way immediately. This is a superb lap for Oscar Piastri. His first run in Q3. The driver who has 4 poles already so far this season. The championship leader across the line. And he goes ahead of Max Verstappen by 0.2 of a second. Over to you, Lando Norris. Let's see if Norris can come through Club Corner. When you add it all up, the two rivals for the title are separated by less than 0.2 of a second. After run number 1, advantage Piastri. George Russell is out there, our pole sitter from last year. He called it one of the highlights of his career. He's got Club Corner to go. Fourth position for George Russell, 0.6 of a second away. Charles Leclerc is in 4th position. What can Lewis Hamilton do? He can go to the front row. He splits the McLarens. Welcome back to with 1 run to go.
Yeah, it's brilliant to see Hamilton definitely getting that car, talking to him. It's unusual to see Leclerc struggling to pull the lap together, and then you can see Piastri's obviously run wide on one of the curbs when he's asking for the floor to be checked. Whatever, if there is any damage, all they can do is add a little bit of tape, nothing else, no other time. And well, the gaps and the margins just over a 10th to where Hamilton is.
Charles Leclerc's never started on the front row around this racetrack. He has been very close to winning it on a couple of occasions in 2021 and 2022. Lewis Hamilton overtook him for the win in 2021. Ferrari's tricky strategy got him in 2022. But Lewis Hamilton, 9-2 down in the qualifying head-to-head, finds himself as the lead Ferrari with 1 more run to go and with 1 more car between him and pole position number 8 around this racetrack.
Well, his mum is here showing her support, as well as his brother, of course. And can we dream? Can we believe? He's tantalizingly close.
And he has looked good with race pace. Lando Norris knows that he needs a strong lap. He's looked good all weekend long. And we know that when we get to Q3, the real picture will emerge. The cooler temperatures at the start of the day, the question was, would it bring Mercedes back into play? The answer is no, but it is worth saying George Russell will be on a new set of tyres at the end. That was an old set of tyres for George Russell. This is Oscar Piastri. Is this where he struck the floor?
This is the exit of Stowe, and yeah, it was also brief, but at that sort of speed and with that amount of downforce, you see as he comes down the end of Hangar Straight, the DRS closes, the load comes back on the car. The tyre, you can see the sidewall bending over, and it was just that moment there where he's all too conscious that it's hit the underside of the car. If there is any damage, to me it can only be in the clank area. It doesn't look like the side of the floor would have touched.
You can see the under tray, the beginning of the Formula One floor. They will have inspected that. This is what they've been updating all the time. McLaren brought an update to that floor in Austria. They further updated the edges. All the down, so much downforce being generated from the underside of the car in this regulation set. Tom Stallard Olympic silver medalist turned race engineer, is the man in the ear of the Australian driver, who has been sensational this year, 5 times a race winner. In P5, Charles Leclerc is the second Ferrari in the order, and all eyes on him. Turning to Lewis Hamilton, can he produce another magical moment around Silverstone circuit?
It's been a frustrating journey to this point, at the halfway point of the actual Grand Prix calendar, but there's a lot of muscle memory in that man.
There is indeed. 0.2 of a second. You can't rule out Max. He says it's tricky, but he thrives taking a car that's not quite there to the front. Lando Norris is within the margin of improvement that we would expect on these final runs. 15 points back in the World Championship. Piastri, the points leader. Hamilton, the record holder in so many departments around this circuit. And Charles Leclerc will want better on this second lap. A reminder for you, George Russell is about to get new tyres. And what did we hear from Ruth earlier on? New tyres worth about 0.6 of a second. His margin to the front, just over 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, all of these guys on the new tyres, though, will expect to be able to improve. Weather conditions seem stable. It's that first sector. That's where Piastri has the advantage over Norris. Norris will know exactly where he pulled that 1/10 of a second, which separates them in that particular sector. And Piastri, of course, will have the advantage of knowing, right, where can I improve on that lap? What can I expect from this final set of new tyres?
Lewis Hamilton, 40 years of age, made his Formula One debut in 2007. Since we went to the ground effect era, start of 2022, Lewis Hamilton has scored 1 pole position. That's it. That's all he's managed. The driver with the most Formula One pole positions in history. 104 heads onto the outlap. Norris in the mix to take it. Piastri wants to silence that illuminous grandstand that he will drive past on the way, he hopes, to retaining his provisional pole and making it official. Verstappen remaining in the pit lane at the moment, everyone else on an outlap.
It really feels like it could go anyway. You know, you mentioned about Russell with the new tyres, but it just feels as if it's out of reach for Mercedes this weekend. But it does feel a perfect lap from either the McLaren, Ferrari or Verstappen would be enough to overcome the difference that they have to Piastri, the only man who's gone below 25 so far in this session.
I can tell you the order of play as we come to the epic moment of Q3 at Silverstone. Russell is on a push lap. Then you will have Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, and Lewis Hamilton will be the last of the main contenders to cross the line. Game on at Silverstone. Lando Norris is attacking the racetrack. There are 90 seconds to go in Q3. Can Norris find an improvement and take his first ever pole position at the British Grand Prix?
Yeah, this is a sector he was down. He'll know already. He gets updates on his dashboard every few meters, so he'll be getting that feedback. We'll soon get to see what his opening sector is, and we'll be hoping that he can go purple there to build his lap.
He does not do so. A personal best, but 0.04 of a second in arrears to Oscar Piastri. Piastri is heading to Brooklands Corner in the left-hand side of your screen. Further up the road and going nicely is Lando Norris, but Piastri is improving further still.
Yeah, both of them then improving in that first sector. Lando is definitely close enough if he can bring together sector 2 and 3 through this magical high-speed section of the racetrack. This is as good as it gets. The last part of qualifying, new tyres, the lap unfolds.
The fastest first sector has been set by Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton in the fight for pole position. It's Norris versus Piastri versus Hamilton. Charles Leclerc is out there as well. George Russell goes to second position. Antonelli is in 7th. But now the championship contenders over the line for Lando Norris, chasing a first home pole. Oh, he misses out by 15 thousandths of a second. Piastri versus Hamilton for pole position then. Oscar Piastri, oh, he drops it on the curb. Can he improve? No, he misses out. And look at the time for Lewis Hamilton. The success at Silverstone has been mighty. Verstappen has the fastest first sector, but he's got the low speed. wide into Vale, trying to use all of the road. Lewis Hamilton chasing pole position number 8 at Silverstone, and he misses out. He's only 4th. The time fell away in that final sector, but Max Verstappen will not give up on this one. It's high speed, attacking. Where does it stack up? Oh, it is mighty. It is mighty. We said, even though the car is tricky, it is possible for Verstappen to do something magical at the end. We mentioned Piastri and Norris. Russell got new tyres for his final run. It looked like Hamilton was set for another pole position. He missed out by a 10th, but the world champion is heading to the line, and Max Verstappen takes pole position with a mighty lap. The champion steps forward for his 4th pole of the year. How did he do that?
I don't know. How does he do that? That is unbelievable.
So many contenders in the mix. The top 6 were separated by 0.2 of a second, and it's Max Verstappen with the skinny rear wing, with the rapid Red Bull, set up to be quick in a straight line, that's on pole.
You went motor racing, Max. That's pole position. Great job.
Yes!
What a lap. What a lap. 24.8, mate. Pole position, British Grand Prix. Well done.
You went motor racing, Max. That's pole position. Great job.
Yes!
What a lap. What a lap. 24.8, mate. Pole position, British Grand Prix. Well done.
That is simply lovely.
Or you would not want to play poker with that man. He's saying this car is so difficult. He was building it up that it wouldn't be enough. And Piastri on that final corner, you can see it coming out of club. Was that enough to make the difference?
An incredible session with so many contenders. Lando Norris taking all of the curb he could on the inside, missing out by a 1/10 of a second, as did Piastri. This is Lewis Hamilton. Oh, it was clean through Stowe. Into Vale we went. He got slightly on the curb, but there's no time lost there that was obvious from the wheel. Slight correction. 2 minor corrections as he tried to apply the power through club, and he got within 0.2 of a second. He beat Charles Leclerc in the teammate head-to-head for only the 3rd time this year. He starts top 5 for his home event.
Yeah, it does feel that, you know, Hamilton will be disappointed with that. He's out-qualified Leclerc, but it just feels that there was a little bit lost at the end of the lap there. It was such tight margins. At the very least, had he not had that little slide, that maybe would have put him in front of Russell. But what an epic battle for pole position.
Well, that's what we have seen time and time again in Formula One 2025. And a brilliant lap to steal it at the end. Their performance with a chunky rear wing to generate the downforce wasn't working. They had to do something bold. They trimmed off the downforce at the back of the car, and Max Verstappen has danced his way around Silverstone to beat the McLarens. Oscar Piastri ahead of title rival Lando Norris. George Russell in the end got within a 1/10 of a second. Didn't have 2 runs on new tyres, but the Mercedes did come alive in the slightly cooler conditions, and Ferrari went from looking very, very competitive to the 3rd row of the grid, albeit only 0.2 of a second away. Antonelli will take a 3-place drop from 7th. Behrman will take a 10-place drop from 8th. And the top 10 is completed by Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly. Now, we have seen the McLarens absolutely mighty at keeping their tyres working for so long. They will hope that continues tomorrow, but it's Oscar Piastri saying well done to Max Verstappen. Piastri over the curb and seeing time slip away in the final corner of the racetrack.
I don't think there was a badly driven lap between any of those top contenders. Absolutely incredible, the margins that we're dealing with. And I'm just mesmerized. I've been involved in this sport for 30 years. And I'm going to have to pinch myself to know if this is real.
The top 3 are speaking to Jolyon Palmer.
Lando Norris, home race, 3rd on the grid, but it's such tight margins out there today.
Yes, good qualifying. You know, I'm not going to be unhappy with the third, of course. We'd love to be on top here in Silverstone, but Max did a good job. Not quick enough for us today, but still a fun qualifying. Qualifying around here in Silverstone is pretty fast, and it's enjoyable and it's good fun. So yeah, not the top, but still a good day.
Talk us through the challenges. I can only imagine it must have been hard to put laps together with the speed of these corners, the windy conditions, trying to find tiny margins all the time. What are you focusing on to nail the perfect lap?
Just little things. You know, little things today put you ahead or behind. Like we saw how close Q1 was, which was pretty shocking and I guess good at the same time. But yeah, little margins, little mistakes, little things. You know, you're talking a couple hundredths here and there can win or lose you the game today. So tough, especially with the wind and the conditions. A little bit of rain every now and then, but still all good fun and still happy with the third.
And you were third last year. You had a chance to win the Grand Prix on the Sunday. Surely there's a chance coming tomorrow. 15,000's behind Oscar. You got Max in the fight as well. You've had some great battles with those two in the past. Yeah. What are we thinking?
I think it's going to be fun tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good battle between the three of us. Probably more, you know, with Lewis, with Charles behind, with George as well. It's going to be an interesting Sunday, so I'm looking forward to it.
We hope so. It was close the whole field through, but well done, Lando. Top three,
Thank you
third
so
place.
Much. Cheers, man.
Oscar, second. You were a provisional pole after the first runs there of Q3, but couldn't quite keep it there on the second run. Are you happy with your lap there?
I was happy with the first lap. The first lap was mega, to be honest. I was trying to think of how I was going to go faster than it, and I didn't. So, yeah, the last lap was a little bit messy, but it's been tight all weekend. And, you know, I think the first lap was very good. I don't know how much the track would have improved, but a little bit on the table. We'll never know if it was enough. So, the team's done a great job. We've tried a lot of things this weekend, trying to get a bit more pace. The cars felt mega all weekend, but there's been a few points where we've been scratching our heads why we're not quicker. So, yeah, the team's done a great job getting us back onto the form that we know. And, yeah, can be an exciting race from there tomorrow.
So take us under the helmet then. You've got provisional pole. You're wheeled back into the garage. You've got more than a 10th margin at this point as well. You said you didn't know how you're going to find more time. You're hoping that others aren't, obviously. But the track's evolving, and somehow you've got to go back out there and wind it up. How tricky is that?
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you think it's a good lap. You know, you don't want to overdo it and try and go over the limit. I think there was a couple of corners where maybe I was a bit safe on the way in and tried to make up for it on the way out, and it didn't quite work. So, yeah, there's always little bits. It's fine margins, as we know, but ultimately pretty happy with second on the grid. So, looking forward to a fun race.
And as well, you've had some great fights with Lando in the last race. That was a pleasure to watch. You've had some good scraps with Max as well. They're starting either side of you tomorrow. Going to get elbows out?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be a fun race. You know, it's been very evenly matched between us, Max, the Ferraris. I saw even George got up there at the end. So I think it's going to be a pretty evenly paced race tomorrow. And all of us have got slightly different strengths. The Red Bull's very quick in a straight line. We seem a bit quicker in the high speed. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Let's hope. We're going to enjoy it. Well done,
Cheers.
Oscar.
Thank you.
Max Verstappen, what a lap there at the end. Looked like it came from a bit further away, but you just pinned them all in, all the sectors. An amazing lap to be clear at the end. How did you do it?
Yeah, it was tricky out there with the wind throughout the whole of qualifying. Q1, Q2, Q3. It was all shifting around a bit. Yeah, a bit different. And around here, with these cars, you know, it's extremely sensitive to it. So, yeah, just trying to tidy it up throughout the whole of qualifying. And, yeah, that final lap was good enough, but yeah, it was proper. I mean, this is a proper track, you know, in qualifying when you have to go flat out and all these corners. It's yeah, you have to be really committed, and that's really enjoyable.
Yeah, you say the last lap was good enough. It looked pretty unbelievable from when I was watching it. You've also got a trimmed out car on downforce, a choice that you made overnight. So I was thinking this is a setup choice with the race in mind, but you've nailed it on pole for qualifying already.
Yeah, exactly. We're quite quick on the straight, which of course is not that easy in the high-speed corners to manage, but we did today, luckily. Of course, we have to wait and see what you know, tomorrow will do, if there's a bit of rain around or not. But I'm happy, of course, with our qualifying. It's a big boost for the team as well, and yeah, just excited to go racing now tomorrow.
And you've had some great fights with those McLaren drivers already this season. You're starting ahead of them. You've had some fantastic wins already this year. Can you have the race pace tomorrow, do you think, to keep them behind?
difficult to say, but we'll try. You know, we're going to go racing, we're going to have fun, and we're going to try to do the best we can.
All right, well done, Max. Fantastic lap.
Thank you to Jolyon for speaking to the top three. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, and it's Max Verstappen who's taken pole position for the British Grand Prix. And they find themselves lining up for the photograph. Everyone smiles as we see highlights of Max Verstappen's lap. A very, very strong performance. Right at the end, we had the Ferraris in the mix. A late attempt by George Russell. The McLaren battle continued, but once again, the world champion found a way. He's on pole for the 12th Grand Prix of the year.